The sky turned black on Tuesday morning when the alien ships came to Earth. Jake Morrison was drinking coffee in his military base when the alarms started screaming. He ran outside and saw huge, dark ships floating above every city on the planet. The ships looked like giant black pyramids that hummed with strange power. Jake was a commander in the Earth Defense Force. He had trained for this day, but never really believed it would happen. Now the aliens were here and his hands shook as he picked up his radio. Orders came through from headquarters telling all units to attack the alien ships with everything they had. Fighter jets took off from bases around the world. Missiles shot up from ships in the ocean. Ground forces fired their biggest guns at the floating pyramids. Jake watched through binoculars as the human weapons hit the alien ships. The explosions looked like tiny fireworks against the massive black holes. Nothing happened to the ships at all. The aliens did not even seem to notice the attack. Their ships just kept floating there, making that weird humming sound. Then something terrible happened. A blue light came out of each ship and spread across the ground below. Every electronic device stopped working when the light touched it. Cars died in the streets. Cell phones went dead. The power went out everywhere. Even the military equipment stopped working. Jake's radio made a crackling sound and then went silent. The fighter jets that were still in the air fell from the sky like rocks. Their engines had stopped working. In just a few hours, the human military was completely helpless. The aliens had not fired a single weapon, but they had already won. People ran through the streets in panic, but there was nowhere to go. The alien ships covered the whole planet. Then the aliens came out of their ships. They were tall and thin, with skin that looked like crystal. They had 4 arms instead of 2 and moved in a way that seemed perfect. When they walked, it looked like they were dancing, but their faces showed no emotion at all. The aliens put small devices on their chests that let them speak human languages. Their voices sounded cold and empty, like machines talking. The leader of the aliens appeared on every dead television screen at the same time. Nobody knew how they made the TVS work, but somehow they did. The alien leader called himself Prime Overseer Keth 9. He looked into the camera with eyes that sparkled like diamonds. When he spoke, his voice had no feeling in it at all. He told humanity that resistance was pointless. He said humans would now serve the alien empire. Those who obeyed would live, and those who fought would die. Dr. Lisa Chen was a scientist who studied life from other planets. She was one of the first humans the aliens captured. They brought her to one of their ships along with thousands of other people. Inside the ship, everything was white and clean. Strange machines made soft beeping sounds. The aliens did something horrible to the captured humans. They put small metal devices into their heads through tiny cuts behind their ears. The devices were called neural dampeners. They made people calm and obedient. After getting the device, Lisa felt different. She could still think clearly, but she did not want to fight anymore. The anger and fear in her mind became quiet. Most humans who got the neural dampeners became like robots. They followed orders without question. They worked when told to work and stopped when told to stop. The devices made them perfect slaves who never complained or caused trouble. But the alien technology was not perfect. Some humans were different from others. About 1 person in every 1,000 had a mind that could fight against the neural dampener. These lucky few could still think freely and feel normal emotions. The aliens usually killed these resistant humans when they found them. Some of the resistant humans were smart enough to hide their immunity. They learned to act like the controlled humans around them. They moved slowly and kept their faces blank. They followed orders like robots even though their minds were still free. Jake was one of these hidden resistors. After the aliens captured him and put the device in his head, he felt the dampening effect try to take over his mind, but something in his brain fought back. He could still feel angry and scared and hopeful. He just had to hide these feelings from the aliens. The invasion was over in 3 days. The aliens had taken control of the entire planet without losing a single ship. Most of humanity was now under mental control. The free humans left were scattered and hiding. The Earth that had been home to billions of free people was now just another slave world in the alien empire. But the aliens had made one big mistake. They thought they understood humans, but they really did not. They saw humans as simple biological machines that could be controlled with the right technology. They did not know about the human spirit that refused to give up even when everything seemed hopeless. This mistake would cost them everything in the end. 5 years passed since the aliens took over Earth. The planet looked completely different now. Where cities used to be, there were now huge work complexes made of white metal. Humans lived in these complexes and worked every day from sunrise to sunset. They ate simple food and slept in small rooms and never complained about anything. Tony Martinez was one of the few humans who could still think freely. Before the invasion, he had been a soldier in the Marines. Now he worked in mining complex 7 in what used to be called Nevada. Every day he watched thousands of humans dig rare metals out of the ground with their faces blank and empty. The aliens had divided all humans into different job groups. Processors worked in big factories making alien technology. Extractors like Tony dug minerals from mines. Maintainers fixed alien machines when they broke down. A small number of smart humans became analysts who helped the aliens plan their work. Tony had learned to act like the other controlled humans. He moved slowly and never smiled. When the alien guards gave him orders, he nodded and obeyed without asking questions. Inside his head, he was still free, but he never let it show on his face. The work was hard and dangerous. Humans worked with sharp tools and heavy machines. Sometimes workers got hurt or sick, but the aliens did not seem to care much. They would just replace injured humans with new ones from the breeding facilities. The aliens treated humans exactly like farm animals. In the factory complexes, the processors made strange devices that the humans did not understand. The work required steady hands and good eyes, so the aliens kept these humans in better condition. They got more food and cleaner rooms than the miners. But they were still slaves with metal devices controlling their minds. Dr. Peter Kim worked as an analyst in the main command center. Before the invasion, he had designed rockets for NASA. Now, he used his engineering skills to help the aliens make their operations more efficient. The neural dampener in his head was supposed to make him loyal, but Peter had found ways to resist its control. Peter discovered that the dampening devices worked by sending signals into specific parts of the human brain. The signals blocked feelings, like anger and fear and the desire to be free. But Peter noticed that the devices had trouble with certain types of thoughts. Complex mathematical problems seemed to confuse the dampeners and create small gaps in their control. While working on alien computer systems, Peter secretly studied their technology. He learned that the neural dampeners operated on a particular frequency that could potentially be disrupted. If someone could find a way to generate the right kind of interference, the devices might stop working completely. Peter started leaving hidden messages in the work reports he submitted to the aliens. The messages were disguised as technical data, but they contained coded information for any free humans who might find them. He wrote about weaknesses in alien systems and possible ways to fight back. In the ruins of New York City, a young woman named Amy Foster led a small group of free humans. They lived in abandoned subway tunnels deep underground where the alien scanners could not find them. Amy had been a computer programmer before the invasion, and now she used her skills to intercept alien communications. Amy's group had only 12 people, but they were all completely free from alien control. They had either resisted the neural dampeners or had never been captured in the first place. For 5 years, they had been hiding and trying to make contact with other resistance groups around the world. Life underground was hard and dangerous. The resistance fighters had to find food and water without being detected by alien patrols. They made weapons from scrap metal and old electronics. Most importantly, they gathered information about alien activities and looked for ways to help other humans break free from mental control. Amy spent most of her time monitoring alien radio transmissions. She had built a communications system from salvaged parts that could pick up signals from the alien command networks. Through these intercepts, she learned about alien plans and the locations of human work facilities the aliens seemed to control. Everything perfectly, their technology was far beyond human understanding. They had weapons that could destroy entire cities and computers that could predict human behavior. They ruled over dozens of slave species across many different planets. Earth was just one small part of their vast empire, but Amy noticed something interesting in the alien communications. The aliens often complained about human inefficiency and unpredictable behavior. They seemed frustrated that humans required rest and food and social interaction. The aliens thought these needs were wasteful and tried to eliminate them, but humans became less productive when they did. Sometimes the dampened humans would do strange things that confused their alien overseers. They would work more slowly for no apparent reason or make small mistakes that seemed almost deliberate. The aliens would adjust their control systems, but the problems would just appear somewhere else. Jake worked as a maintainer in one of the alien command centers. His job was to keep their computer systems running properly. The aliens trusted him because his neural dampener made him seem completely obedient. They did not know that Jake could still think freely and remember what life was like before the invasion. While maintaining the alien computers, Jake learned how their control systems worked. He discovered that the aliens monitored human brain activity through the neural dampeners. Any sign of rebellion or independent thought would trigger an alert that brought guards running. This was why free humans had to be so careful to hide their real feelings, but Jake also noticed that the alien monitoring systems had blind spots. They were designed to detect aggression and fear and hatred. They were not very good at recognizing other types of human emotion. Things like humor and joy and hope seemed to confuse the sensors and sometimes slip through undetected. The resistance was growing slowly but surely. Free humans were making contact across the planet and sharing information about alien weaknesses. They had learned to communicate using coded messages hidden in work schedules and supply requests. Each small victory gave them hope that someday they might be able to fight back against their alien masters and reclaim their world. The rebellion started with something nobody expected. It began with a joke that Amy Foster heard while listening to alien communications from her underground hideout. The aliens were talking to each other about their human workers, and they sounded annoyed and confused. Amy heard the alien commanders complaining that humans were inefficient in ways they could not understand. The aliens said humans wasted time on pointless social behaviors and required too much rest and food. They could not figure out why humans needed to interact with each other when they should just focus on work. Amy realized something important. As she listened to these conversations, the aliens understood human bodies and human technology, but they did not understand human minds at all. They thought humans were just biological machines that could be programmed like computers. They had no idea what made humans truly human. This gave Amy an idea that seemed crazy at first. She remembered reading Dr. Peter Kim's hidden messages in the work reports. Peter had discovered that the neural dampeners could be overloaded by strong emotional responses. The devices were designed to suppress negative feelings like anger and fear, but they had trouble with other types of emotion. Amy decided to test something. She managed to hack into the work assignment system that the aliens used to send orders to human workers. The system was supposed to only carry official instructions, but Amy found a way to add extra messages. She started sending jokes and funny stories along with the regular work orders. The jokes were simple and silly. Amy picked ones that even dampened humans might find amusing. She sent riddles and puns and stories about animals doing ridiculous things. At first, nothing happened, and Amy wondered if her plan was completely foolish. But then something amazing began to occur. Workers in the factory started to smile slightly when they read their assignment sheets. A few even made quiet chuckling sounds while they worked. The aliens noticed these small changes but they did not understand what was causing them. Dr. Peter Kim was one of the first to figure out what Amy was doing. When he saw a joke hidden in his technical reports, he felt something he had not experienced in 5 years. He laughed. For just a moment, the neural dampener in his head seemed to flicker and weaken. Peter realized that laughter was creating interference. With the alien control device, Peter started adding his own jokes to the reports he submitted. He hid them in technical language so the aliens would not notice. Soon other analysts were doing the same thing. Jokes and funny comments began spreading through the work facilities like a secret infection. The effect on the neural dampeners was remarkable. Each time a human laughed or smiled, the device would struggle to suppress the positive emotion. Laughter was something the aliens had never encountered in their other slave species. Their control technology had no way to deal with humor and joy. Jake Morrison was working in the alien command center when he heard Amy's voice for the first time. She had managed to broadcast a joke over the facility's communication system. The joke was about why aliens never land at airports, and even though it was silly, Jake found it hilarious given their current situation. The combination of humor and irony created such a strong emotional response that Jake's neural dampener completely burned out. For the first time in 5 years, his mind was completely free. He could think and feel whatever he wanted without any alien interference. Jake had to control himself to keep from shouting with joy. Jake quickly learned to act like his dampener was still working. He kept his face blank when aliens were watching, but inside he was planning. He used his access to the command center computers to help spread Amy's jokes to other facilities around the world. Soon humans were laughing in mines and factories across every continent. Tony Martinez was digging in the Nevada complex when he heard his first joke in years. It was about a talking dog, and it was so unexpected that Tony burst out laughing before he could stop himself. The other miners looked at him strangely because dampened humans never laughed. Tony realized he had made a dangerous mistake, but then something wonderful happened. The other miners started to smile too. The joke had awakened something in their controlled minds. One by one, the neural dampeners began to weaken as suppressed emotions fought back against the alien technology. Soon the entire mining crew was sharing jokes and stories they remembered from before the invasion. The aliens noticed that human productivity was declining, but they could not figure out why. Their monitoring systems showed that the humans were following orders and working normally. The neural dampeners appeared to be functioning correctly. But somehow the work was getting done more slowly and with more mistakes than before. Amy expanded her operation from the subway tunnels. She recruited Carlos Rodriguez, a former teacher who had been hiding in the ruins of Chicago. Carlos understood how to spread information effectively, and he helped organize a network of joke tellers across the resistance movement. The humor campaign grew beyond simple jokes. Humans started sharing funny stories about their lives before the invasion. They told tales about their families and friends and all the silly things people used to do when they were free. These stories reminded the dampened humans of what they had lost and made them want to fight for it again. Dr. Lisa Chen was working in an alien research facility when the jokes reached her. She had been studying alien biology for 5 years with her emotions suppressed by the neural dampener. When she heard a funny story about a cat who thought he was a dog, she laughed so hard that tears came to her eyes. The dampener in Lisa's head sparked and went dead. Suddenly, she could remember why she had become a scientist in the first place. She remembered her love of discovery and her curiosity about the universe. Most importantly, she remembered her hatred for the aliens who had enslaved her people. Lisa began sabotaging her research from inside the alien facility. She gave false information about human biology that made the aliens' control systems less effective. She also started studying the alien technology to find new weaknesses that the resistance could exploit. Within months, Amy's joke network had spread to dozens of human facilities. Thousands of neural dampeners had been overloaded by laughter and positive emotions. The aliens tried to adjust their control technology but they could not understand what they were fighting against. The Resistance had discovered humanity's secret weapon against alien oppression. It was not advanced technology or military might. It was the simple human ability to find humor even in the darkest situations. The aliens could control human bodies and suppress human anger, but they could never eliminate the human spirit that refused to take tyranny seriously. The aliens began to notice that something was wrong with their human workers, but they could not understand what was happening. Production numbers were falling across all facilities, but the monitoring systems showed that humans were still following orders. The neural dampeners appeared to be working normally, yet somehow the work was not getting done efficiently. Tony Martinez had become an expert at what the Resistance called malicious compliance. This meant following alien orders exactly as given, but in ways that caused maximum problems and delays. When his alien supervisor told him to move ore containers to the loading dock, Tony would do exactly that, but he would move them one at a time, taking the longest possible route between the mine and the dock. The aliens could not punish Tony because he was technically following orders perfectly. They would give him more specific instructions, but Tony would find new ways to interpret them that slowed down the work. If they told him to move the containers quickly, he would ask them to define exactly how quickly. If they gave him a time limit, he would work at precisely that speed and no faster. Dr. Peter Kim and the other analysts had perfected the art of helpful incompetence. They would submit detailed reports that contained accurate information, but were organized in ways that made the data useless. Peter would answer every question the aliens asked, but he would give them so much information that they could not find what they actually needed. When the aliens asked for efficiency recommendations, Peter would suggest changes that sounded good, but would actually make things worse. He recommended new schedules that looked logical, but would create bottlenecks in production. He suggested equipment modifications that would cause mysterious breakdowns after a few weeks of use. Amy Foster had expanded her operation beyond joke-telling. Her Resistance network now included thousands of humans across 3 continents who were working together to create chaos in the alien system. They had learned that the aliens were very bureaucratic and loved detailed paperwork and official procedures. The Resistance began filing complaints through the alien administrative system. Humans submitted millions of requests for clarification on work orders. They asked questions about safety regulations that did not exist. They requested meetings with supervisors to discuss workplace issues that were completely made up. Jake Morrison had access to the alien communication networks from his position in the command center. He began routing these human complaints to the wrong departments and creating a bureaucratic nightmare that consumed hours of alien time every day. Aliens who were supposed to be managing mining operations found themselves dealing with requests for better food in the textile factories. The aliens tried to create new rules to stop the flood of complaints, but this only made things worse. Humans would study each new regulation carefully and find loopholes and ambiguities that let them cause even more problems. The more rules the aliens made, the more opportunities humans had for creative interpretation. Carlos Rodriguez organized the transport maintainers into a symphony of delays. Every alien vehicle would be carefully inspected and maintained according to official procedures. But somehow there was always one more thing that needed to be checked before the vehicle could be declared safe for operation. The aliens could not argue with safety procedures they had created themselves. Dr. Lisa Chen had found her own way to fight back from inside the research facility. She would conduct experiments exactly as ordered, but she would ask for additional resources and equipment that were not really necessary. She would request rare materials that had to be shipped from other planets, causing massive delays in research schedules. Lisa also became an expert at presenting useless information in ways that seemed valuable. Her reports were masterpieces of scientific language that appeared to contain important discoveries, but actually said nothing useful at all. The aliens would spend weeks trying to understand her findings before realizing they had learned nothing. The Resistance discovered that alien computers could be overloaded by transmitting large amounts of human cultural content, Amy found a way to upload music and movies and books into the alien data networks. The alien computers could not process human art and creativity efficiently, so the files would clog up their systems and slow everything down. Jake began systematically uploading humanity's entire digital heritage into the alien networks. Millions of songs and stories and pictures crashed through alien servers like a tidal wave of culture. The aliens tried to filter out what they called data corruption, but their systems could not tell the difference between human creativity and random computer errors. The Resistance also learned to use alien efficiency against them. The aliens loved to optimize everything for maximum productivity, so humans began suggesting improvements that sounded logical, but were actually terrible ideas. They recommended work schedules that would exhaust workers and equipment arrangements that would cause accidents. Tony convinced his alien supervisors to implement a new mining system that he claimed would increase ore extraction by 30%. The system actually made the work much harder and more dangerous while producing less ore than before. By the time the aliens figured this out, they had already invested months in converting all their mining operations. The humans had turned bureaucracy into a weapon. Every form that needed to be filled out was an opportunity for creative misunderstanding. Every procedure that had to be followed was a chance to cause delays and confusion. The aliens found themselves drowning in paperwork generated by their own slaves. Peter Kim organized what he called an efficiency festival. All the human analysts simultaneously submitted their most helpful recommendations for improving alien operations. The suggestions were so numerous and detailed that alien administrators spent weeks just reading through them all. Most of the recommendations contradicted each other, creating even more confusion. The aliens tried to solve their human problem by creating more rules and procedures, but this only gave humans more tools to use against them. Every new regulation was studied carefully by the Resistance and turned into another opportunity for malicious compliance. The aliens were being defeated by their own love of organization and control. Amy realized that humans had discovered something more powerful than weapons or technology. They had found a way to turn their oppressors' strengths against them. The aliens were logical and organized and efficient, but humans could be illogical and chaotic and creatively inefficient. In a universe full of orderly alien species, humanity's greatest advantage was their beautiful unpredictability. 3 years into the human rebellion, the Zephyrian Empire was losing money on Earth for the first time in their history. Prime Overseer Keth9 stood in his crystal chamber reading reports that made no logical sense. Every number showed that humans were following orders and working normally, yet somehow productivity continued to fall every month. The Empire had conquered 47 different species across the galaxy over thousands of years. Every other slave race had eventually accepted their situation and become productive workers. But humans were different in ways that the aliens could not understand or predict. They followed orders while somehow achieving the opposite of what was intended. Sub-Overseer Velen 3 entered the chamber with more bad news. The human problem was spreading to other worlds where the Empire kept different slave species. Aliens on distant planets were reporting that their workers were beginning to act strangely. Some had started filing unnecessary paperwork. Others were asking questions about orders that had never been questioned before. The worst news was that 3 other slave species had actually rebelled using methods they had learned from intercepted human communications. The Deltari workers on Kepler 4b had organized a work slowdown that disguised itself as careful attention to safety regulations. The Vulthan miners on Proxima 3 had begun submitting so many equipment inspection reports that the local administration had ground to a halt. KETH-9 could not understand how humans had accomplished this. The neural dampeners were still functioning. Brain scans showed that human workers were calm and obedient, yet somehow they had managed to teach rebellion to species that had been peaceful slaves for centuries. It defied every model of behavior that the Empire had developed. On Earth, the resistance had evolved into something beyond simple sabotage. Carlos Rodriguez had discovered that aliens became extremely confused when humans worked together on tasks that served no practical purpose. He organized groups of workers to build elaborate sculptures out of industrial waste during their break times. The aliens could not decide whether this was approved recreational activity or unauthorized use of materials the sculptures served. No function except to be beautiful, and this concept seemed to break alien logic circuits. The aliens would study the artworks for hours trying to determine their purpose. When they asked the humans to explain the sculptures, the workers would give detailed technical descriptions that revealed absolutely nothing about why the art existed. Dr. Peter Kim had become a master of what he called constructive confusion. He would implement alien efficiency recommendations exactly as specified, but would interpret them in ways that created unexpected results. When aliens ordered faster production schedules, Peter would speed up the work so much that quality control became impossible and everything had to be redone. Amy Foster realized that the aliens' greatest weakness was their inability to understand irrational behavior. She organized what she called a galaxy-wide compliance festival. On the same day, humans across 3 star systems would begin following every single rule and regulation with perfect precision. They would ask for written authorization before performing any task. They would demand safety inspections before using any tool. They would request supervisory approval for every decision, no matter how small. The aliens had created thousands of rules and procedures over the years, but had never expected anyone to actually follow all of them simultaneously. When humans began obeying every regulation perfectly, the entire Empire's productivity ground to a complete halt. Nothing could get done because every action required multiple approvals and inspections. Jake Morrison had learned to weaponize alien bureaucracy from his position in the command center. He began creating new forms and procedures that looked official but served no actual purpose. He would send memos requiring supervisors to submit reports about reports they had submitted about other reports. Soon, alien administrators were spending more time on paperwork than on actual management. The aliens tried to simplify their procedures, but this only made things worse. Every time they eliminated a rule, humans would find new ways to interpret the remaining regulations. When the aliens tried to give more general orders, humans would ask for specific clarification on every detail. The more the aliens tried to fix their system, the more broken it became. Tony Martinez organized the miners to demonstrate perfect safety compliance. They would test every piece of equipment before using it and stop work immediately if they found any potential hazard. Since the mining equipment was old and dangerous, there were always safety issues to be found. The mines operated at less than 10% efficiency while maintaining perfect safety records. Dr. Lisa Chen had convinced her alien supervisors to let her conduct a comprehensive study of human efficiency in the research facility. She spent months interviewing workers and analyzing their behavior patterns. Her final report was 2,000 pages long and concluded that humans could be made more productive by giving them more breaks, better food, and recreational activities. The aliens could not argue with her scientific methodology, even though they suspected something was wrong. The resistance had learned that aliens were terrified of being blamed for inefficiency by their superiors. Humans began leaving subtle hints that alien supervisors were not managing their workers properly. They would mention in casual conversation how much better things used to work under previous managers. They would ask innocent questions about whether the current supervisor had been properly trained. These psychological tactics drove the aliens to implement constant changes and improvements that usually made things worse. Supervisors would compete with each other to show better results, leading to contradictory orders and confused policies. The humans would dutifully try to follow conflicting instructions while secretly enjoying the chaos they had created. Amy's network had grown to include resistance cells on every human world and even some sympathetic members of other slave species. They shared techniques for creative interpretation of orders and developed new ways to turn alien efficiency against itself. The rebellion was no longer just about Earth, but had become a galaxy-wide movement for freedom through creative incompetence. The final blow came when humans discovered how to make alien computers generate random nonsense while appearing to function normally. Jake had figured out how to inject small amounts of human poetry and song lyrics into alien databases. The computers would try to process this creative content and begin generating reports filled with accidentally beautiful language that meant nothing at all. Keth9 received a production report that described mining operations using romantic metaphors and recommended improving efficiency through interpretive dance. Another report analyzed factory output using haiku poetry and suggested that workers would be more productive if they could express their feelings through artistic collaboration. The alien empire was drowning in its own bureaucracy while humans laughed at the beautiful absurdity they had created. The end of the Zephyrian Empire came not with explosions or battles, but with a simple announcement that no one expected. Prime Overseer Keth9 stood before the Galactic Council in the Great Crystal Chamber that had seen the conquest of dozens of worlds. For the first time in the Empire's history, an Overseer was requesting permission to abandon a conquered planet. The Council members sat in shocked silence as Keth9 explained the impossible situation on Earth. The humans were following orders perfectly, yet nothing was getting accomplished. They had turned obedience itself into a form of rebellion that the alien mind could not comprehend or counter. Productivity had fallen so low that the Earth operation was actually costing the Empire money instead of making a profit. Worse than the financial losses was the fact that the human problem was spreading across the galaxy. Other slave species were learning human techniques of malicious compliance and creative interpretation. 3 entire worlds had experienced work slowdowns disguised as safety improvements. The rebellion was becoming a virus that infected every species it touched. KETH-9 showed the Council examples of human behavior that defied all logic. Workers who built beautiful but useless sculptures during break time, analysts who submitted reports written in poetry that contained no actual information, miners who followed safety procedures so carefully that no mining could occur. The aliens had created a perfect bureaucracy and humans had turned it into a perfect weapon against them. The Council members tried to suggest solutions, but Keth9 had already attempted everything they proposed. More rules only gave humans more opportunities for creative misinterpretation. Simpler orders led to requests for clarification that generated endless paperwork. Even violence against disobedient workers had backfired because humans would comply so perfectly with punishment procedures that the disciplinary system became overwhelmed. On Earth, Amy Foster stood in the ruins of New York City watching the last alien ships prepare for departure. The Zephyrians were abandoning their entire infrastructure rather than continue trying to manage human workers. They declared the planet contaminated by what they called human illogic and too dangerous to occupy. The neural dampeners had been deactivated when the aliens realized they were causing more problems than they solved. Humans who had been mentally controlled for 8 years were suddenly free to think and feel whatever they wanted. Many of them stood in the streets, crying with joy as they remembered what it felt like to be truly human. Tony Martinez emerged from the mines to see sunlight for the first time in nearly a decade. The alien equipment was still there, but now it belonged to humanity. The Zephyrians had left behind centuries of advanced technology because they could not figure out how to make it work with human operators. Tony looked at the massive mining machines and laughed at the irony of it all. Dr. Peter Kim stood in the abandoned alien command center surrounded by computers that contained the scientific knowledge of an entire galactic empire. The aliens had fled so quickly that they had not bothered to wipe their databases. Humanity had inherited technology that would advance their civilization by thousands of years simply because they had been too annoying to manage as slaves. Jake Morrison found Carlos Rodriguez organizing cleanup crews in the former alien administrative building. Even the post-liberation work had a distinctly human flavor. The crew spent as much time joking and telling stories as they did actually cleaning, and somehow they accomplished more than any alien efficiency algorithm had ever predicted. The aliens had left behind detailed records of their bureaucratic nightmare. Amy read through reports describing human workers who had requested written permission to breathe during work hours. Others had filed complaints about the psychological stress of not being allowed to give their tools personal names. The resistance had driven the aliens to madness through sheer absurdity. Dr. Lisa Chen was appointed as Earth's first ambassador to the wider galaxy. Her job was to make contact with other species and explain how humanity had achieved something that no one thought possible. She would tell the story of how humans had defeated a galactic empire not through superior weapons or technology, but through their refusal to take oppression seriously. News of Earth's liberation spread quickly across the galaxy. Other enslaved species began adopting human resistance techniques with remarkable success. The Deltari developed their own version of malicious compliance by interpreting work orders as artistic challenges. The Volthan miners began filing so many safety reports that their alien overseers spent all day reading paperwork instead of supervising work. Within 10 years, the mighty Zephyrian Empire had collapsed entirely, not through war or revolution, but through the simple spread of creative disobedience. Species after species discovered that they could defeat their oppressors by following orders in ways that made the orders meaningless. The galaxy learned that sometimes the most effective weapon against tyranny is to make it look ridiculous. The Zephyrians retreated to their home worlds and tried to rebuild their empire using only robotic workers. But they had lost their confidence and their reputation. Other alien species no longer feared them because everyone knew they could be defeated by creative incompetence and bureaucratic chaos. Amy Foster became the leader of Earth's new government, but she insisted on keeping things simple and flexible. She had seen what happened when rules became too complicated and bureaucracy grew too large. The new human society would be organized around principles of humor and creativity and the fundamental right to find authority figures absurd when they deserved it. Jake Morrison was put in charge of Earth's defense forces, but the job was easier than anyone expected. Word had spread throughout the galaxy that humans were too dangerous to conquer. Not because they were violent or technologically advanced, but because they could turn any system of control into chaos through sheer bloody-minded creativity. The galaxy had learned an important lesson about the nature of freedom and resistance. Sometimes the best way to fight oppression is not through violence or hatred, but through laughter and stubborn refusal to cooperate with injustice. Humans had proven that no system of control is perfect and that the human spirit will always find ways to assert its freedom. Dr. Lisa Chen ended her first speech to the Galactic Assembly with words that would be remembered across the stars. She told the gathered representatives that humanity had not defeated the Zephyrians through superior technology or military might, but through being fundamentally and stubbornly human. Sometimes the most powerful weapon in the universe is the simple refusal to take evil seriously. And in the depths of space, a Zephyrian computer was still trying to process a joke about rubber chickens while generating endless reports about the artistic significance of mining equipment. The rebellion was over, but its spirit lived on in every species that had learned to laugh at their oppressors and find freedom through the beautiful absurdity of refusing to cooperate with tyranny.